Guys, we got to talk about Dragon Age as a franchise. Right? Now, obviously, we're talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard because that's the most recent one, and we haven't talked about Dragon Age in a while. And the reason why we haven't talked about Dragon Age in a while is because the franchise is dead. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you guys want to see more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join me every single day, 9 p.m. over on the main channel, where you can catch me live every single day, 9 p.m. Eastern. I hope to see every single one of you there. Now back to the main video, or at least that's how I see it. So it's been a long time since we talked about Dragon Age, and we're coming full circle at this point. Now, when it comes to Dragon Age, one of the former leads, who's very well known with the franchise, David Gaider, has decided to chime in talking about Dragon Age, and the reason why he won't personally play Dragon Age the Veilguard. I find this to be so ironic, though, because even though he says that he wouldn't personally play Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I don't think this article actually covers it. I remember seeing that post on social media of him saying that. The truth is that he defended it. Right, he actually defended Dragon Age the Veilguard when it came out, basically saying that people that were complaining that it was woke or whatever are tourists to the Dragon Age franchise, right? And again, it's like, I think people use that word to describe things that they're upset about, that they may not necessarily know how to describe, but realistically, what people mean, right? And the way that things were back in the day compared to what they are now are totally different. There's a reason why video games like Veilguard get shit on and video games like Mass Effect get celebrated, right? It's because video games like Mass Effect, for anybody that doesn't know, Mass Effect had plenty of gay relationships, right? You had the option to be gay in Mass Effect, and that was many, many, many years ago, right? It was an RPG, had a bunch of choices, romance choices and whatnot. Like you had those options in the later game, and nobody ever said a thing, and it was because, and you guys know what I'm going to say, is because the writing those games had were infinitely better than anything that's ever come out in recent memory, especially from modern day BioWare. Modern day BioWare is a shell of its former self. It's honestly pathetic. Modern day BioWare has lost its charm that it had many, 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 many years ago. And I played Veilguard. I completed Veilguard. I made sure every single one of my characters died, because that was the only way for it to end. And honestly, for me, it's like Dragon Age the Veilguard, the biggest problem with that game is that in a video game that should be about choice, you had very little. So even let's say, even if you didn't want to partake in all the nonsense, right? Let's say, because I don't really do romances in video games. I hate it personally. I know some people love it and it's fine. But me personally, I'm just focused on the game and the gameplay and the actual story. I don't give a fuck about the romance unless it has something to do with the actual story. Then I'll fuck around with it, or if I'm doing it as a joke. But otherwise, I really don't. I don't personally care. But at the end of the day, if it was a choice, that's better, because then I could just not make that choice. It's very easy not to make that choice. Like RPGs, I've always personally graded RPGs very different. I've graded RPGs very different in what I am tolerable to and what I am not tolerable to, because RPGs are all about choices, and it's a literal role-playing game. So it's like you are going to role-play the way you want to role-play. So naturally, I do expect them to give multiple choices to people to be able to role-play the way they want to role-play. So I've always graded it differently. But the problem with Veilguard is that the choice was made for you, right? Even in the beginning of the game, I'll give you an example. About 30 minutes into the game or something like that, you're greeted with a choice, right? And that choice is whether or not you want to have a trans character or not. Forget the fact that it's egregious enough that you're bringing in modern day terminology into a dark fantasy video game like that. You're bringing modern terminology into it. But even if I wanted to let that go, it doesn't matter, because if you choose no for having a trans character, you're still going to get bombarded with all the other nonsense from all the other characters in the game. You can't avoid Tosh like that. You got to deal with Tosh. You may be able to avoid her non-binary scene, but you're going to get bombarded with it at some point. You're going to get bombarded with her nonsense. And that's the issue, is that the choice is made for you and that they force it on you with no means for you to avoid it and play the game that you want to play. So that was my biggest issue with Veilguard. Veilguard makes the choice for you, and even when you say no, they still throw it in your face anyway. Not to mention the NPCs. There was a female blacksmith, I forgot what town she was in, who told me that her pronouns were whatever, they, them, or some shit. It's like, why is the blacksmith in a dark fantasy video game telling me that her pronouns are they, them? Why is this happening? Like, there's no reason for this to be happening. This is fucking egregious, right? So anyway, the point is, or she told me like she was non-binary or something. It's one of the two. I think it was non-binary. The point is, the game takes the choice away from you, and the game essentially forces it on you. And that's where I get annoyed, right? If it's an RPG and it's a choice, and I could just not make the choice and just play the game the way I want to play it, I don't care. But if you're going to take me out of the story, when I, at the beginning of the game, said no, you clearly don't know what no means. You clearly don't actually know what the hell no means. So anyway, so all that aside, David Gaider is well known in the Dragon Age community, and he defended this game in the beginning, but now he's saying that playing the game will leave him heartbroken or something like that. It says Dragon Age is unlikely to continue at EA, says former lead David Gaider, but if you gave him the keys to the RPG, he would take it somewhere dark and do things that will make people upset. What, so Veilguard didn't make people upset? What the hell are you talking about, brother? It's no secret BioWare's Dragon Age series has seen better days under its corporate overlord, Electronic Arts. You know what I like about the gaming journalists is that they went from how do you put it? They went from shilling for the game to saying that the game is good, but it's misunderstood, to then saying, okay, the game is not as good as it is, but the score is going to stand. There's literally journalists that scored this game 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and then a year later, they're like, you know what? The game's actually not a 9 out of 10, but we don't go back and edit our reviews, so it's going to stay a 9 out of 10. It's like, really, dude? Anyway, I love seeing the switch because they constantly switch all the time. Constantly switch it up. They'll just follow whatever people are saying. They'll try to counter the chuds, and if the numbers don't back it up, if the numbers cannot support what they're saying to you, then they'll just be like, yeah, well, it's true, but it's not true because of your reasons. It's true because of my reasons, and my reasons are always anti-capitalism. Because that's what it is, right? Like, they'll constantly, you can see it here, complaining about their corporate overlords, Electronic Arts. It's EA's fault that Dragon Age is dead. It's EA's fault, guys. Which, don't get it twisted. EA definitely played a part in it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like EA did not play a part in killing Dragon Age. But I'm also not going to pretend like the developers that were over there, they were absolutely ideological psychopaths, didn't take a part in killing Dragon Age either. Like, I'm not going to, like, you all took a part in that. It wasn't just EA, and it wasn't just BioWare. You guys all did that together. Not to mention that you guys were so focused on your ideology nonsense that you decided to take over 10 years to develop this game and go through 3 different iterations of this game. And the final iteration that we got of that game, you worked on it for like 3-4 years. So what the hell were you doing for the over 10 years? All the money that you blew on this game for what? What was the point of that? Anyway, so it says that with the most recent entry, 2024's Veilguard failing to meet sales expectations after a decade of development hell, despite generally positive reviews. Again, reviews don't mean anything. They don't mean anything because with video games like Veilguard, everybody's got a mission, right? When it comes to the games media, you guys made your mission very clear. You're going to suck this game off dry as much as you possibly can, and you're going to use it for all it's worth to push whatever little message that you wanted to push at the time. It didn't last very long, but that's what you did. We all saw it. The numbers were exactly what we said it was going to be. And then you guys all switched up later down the line. You all switched up. Every single one of you for the most part. According to David Gaider, longtime Dragon Age writer from Origins to Inquisition, EA's discontent with the series runs a lot deeper than that, telling PC Gamer that it was pretty much always on the chopping block during his long tenure at BioWare. In fact, he's seen enough that he's been convinced that there is no future for Dragon Age at EA, saying it's unlikely to get another game unless it gets bought by another owner. To be honest with you, it should get bought by someone else. Have BioWare sell it. Seriously. Have BioWare sell Dragon Age. Please. I beg of you, actually. You know what? Bro, you know what? Respectfully, give Dragon Age to Larian Studios. And I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding, bro. Respectfully, sell Dragon Age to Larian Studios and get the fuck out. Get out. Leave at that point. Let's give it to Larian Studios. That's what I think needs to happen. Dragon Age needs to go to them. You know? Is it ever going to happen? Probably not, but that's who needs to buy Dragon Age. Because if Larian Studios, bro, if they made a Dragon Age game, oh my god, brother. That would be unbelievable. Do you see how dark their current video games are with Divinity? Do you see how crazy Divinity is right now? Dragon Age would be insane under the hands of Larian Studios. And you know what's amazing about Larian Studios is that they're a studio that has all kinds of people working for them. You know? Remember the story that came out where some weird, like, I don't know, like some employee over there, some trans employee was accusing Larian Studios of like bigotry, transphobia, sexism, and I don't know, whatever, sexual misconduct, whatever stuff, right? They were accusing them of all kinds of stuff, and then the story completely died because they didn't get the attention they wanted. And they were doing it because, according to that trans person, they were angry because Larian Studios would not fire a group of employees that were Trump supporters. It's like, I guess they were talking politics at the studio, and the trans person said that half the studio is essentially right-wing and the other half is left-wing, and there's constantly arguments over game design, right? Apparently, they were arguing over the pronouns in Baldur's Gate 3, and the pronouns ended up staying, but then the people who were arguing against the pronouns ended up getting what they wanted from the game when they added their own thing in the game. So my thing is like, I actually don't mind that. I don't personally mind when there's half and half, and you're putting things into the games that everybody wants, right? This is why like the game was so far-reaching and why it was so successful, because everybody was playing it. Everybody had something in that RPG to make them play the game that they wanted to play. And it really is the reason why that game stood out the way that it did. I feel like that's great. You should never be in an echo chamber when you're at your place of work. And I understand the gaming industry is very used to that. You know, the gaming industry is very used to that. They're used to that echo chamber style mindset. But Larian Studios, the CEO of Larian Studios, he apparently was approached by that employee, essentially saying that they wanted that, you know, that group of people to be, I don't know, reined in or whatever. And the CEO said, no, we're not doing that. So realistically, like, I thought that was pretty good. That's what you call real diversity, not that fake BS corporate diversity that they're always preaching about, but they never actually do in real life. That's what it really looks like. But anyway, I digress. So I would love to see them take over for Dragon Age. I think that'd be pretty epic. Throughout the entire time I was there, we were always one breath away from the project being shelved. Gaider says, the thing that happened is that we kept releasing games, and it would sell much better than they thought it should, and it kept surprising them. Gaider then left Dragon Age team after Inquisition to work on Anthem, and we all know how that went. He ultimately left BioWare entirely in 16, but he clearly still harbors some mixed emotions about his time with the studio. Describing a leadership environment that gave excuses for other series failures, like Mass Effect, but called successful Dragon Age releases a fluke. Well, it's because, realistically, I mean, Mass Effect had a broader appeal. I think Mass Effect had a broader appeal overall. It's a little bit lighter, you know, in tone in terms of like presentation. Dragon Age was always a bit darker. I know they tried to like lighten it up a little bit later down the line, especially with Veilguard, got super light. But realistically, Mass Effect was the love child, and Mass Effect was more successful. It just was. Especially for the first 2 games, it was way more successful. And the amount of hype, the disgusting amount of hype that was behind Mass Effect 3 was just I can't even describe to you. I can't describe to you how much hype there was for Mass Effect 3. It was the Star Wars of our time for video games. It really was. It was that sci-fi epic that everybody was thinking about. You know? So, I don't know, man. I've heard this rumor quite a bit before that Mass Effect was a love child and that Dragon Age never got anything. And I feel like this is from people that just want to blame anything other than the studio that made it. I'm sure EA had something to do with it, I'm sure, but realistically, they're trying to make it seem like they had everything to do with it, and that's not true. That's not true at all. So, I don't think we're going to see another Dragon Age from BioWare. And like I told you guys before, I'm sticking with my prediction that Mass Effect is make or break, right? The upcoming Mass Effect 4 or 5, whatever it's called, the upcoming Mass Effect, if that game is not successful, BioWare's dead. It's done. It's gone. It's cooked. BioWare is dead. There's no coming back from it. It's over. I think EA is going to shut them down, especially since EA is going private and they're about to be owned by the Saudis. Saudis are not going to want to care about that shit. BioWare's got one shot. And yeah, I don't really know if they're going to do it right. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Dragon Age is freaking dead, boys. It's dead.